try your best, but you don't succeed. When you get what you want, but not what you need. When you feel so tired, but you can't sleep. Stuck in rivers, and the tears come streaming down your face. When you lose something you can't replace. When you love someone but it goes to waste. Could it be worse? Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you.
don't leave home without these. The 201st Battlefield Surveillance Brigade Color Guard Team is a team of soldiers personally selected by their brigade command sergeant major because of their competence, commitment, and character in all they do. The 201st Battlefield Surveillance Brigade and the City of Gig Harbor have been in partnership since 2000 as a part of the Community Connector program. Gentlemen, thank you so much for that. Before I welcome you all here, I do have one public announcement. I don't mean to embarrass anyone, but we did find a blank check on the floor for Michelle Henry. So we have your check, don't panic, and we will get that to you. Thank you. So here we are, our 4th year. I got to tell you, I've got this big smile on my face because I have an inkling of what's going to happen over the course of this morning. This is going to be a morning of prayer. It's going to be a morning of song, of understanding, of heroes sharing their stories, their very real struggles as they attempt to come home and shed the warrior clothing that they've been wearing for so long. It's going to be a morning of a sadness in many ways, a morning of empathy, but also a morning of respect and honor and a morning of healing. Good morning. My name is Don Gartland, and I'm honored and humbled to be here as the president of the Permission to Start Dreaming Foundation. On behalf of our founder and executive director, Leslie Main, her entire family, the board of directors of the Permission to Start Dreaming Foundation, and the countless volunteers and supporters, welcome to our 4th annual prayer breakfast, and thank you so much for being here. I would like to first recognize our military and community leaders that have joined us today, and I would ask that you stand as I announce your name, and if you could please remain standing. This is an unbelievable privilege, so I'm just going to say it. Ladies and gentlemen, Medal of Honor recipient, Staff Sergeant Ty Carter, United States Army. Thank you. Sergeant Carter, thank you so much for being here. If you can do whatever you want, sir. Following that tough introduction, I'd like to introduce some others that we have here. Our very own Congressman, Mr. Derek Kilmer. Mr. Kilmer, thank you for being here, sir. We have with us today Brigadier General Paul Groover, National Guard, who will be delivering our opening prayer. Sergeant Carter started a trend and no one's standing, but we'll get you to stand in a second here. We're honored to have Colonel Dan Solar here. Colonel Solar is the commander of the 201st Battlefield Surveillance Brigade, United States Army. Colonel Solar, thank you. Major John Lavati, United States Army. Major Lavati is instrumental in getting us a position to be able to invite Sergeant Carter to our prayer breakfast this morning. Major Lavati, thank you. Join me in welcoming Sergeant First Class Chad Smith, United States Army. This young man is attached at the hip with Sergeant Carter. See, I told you he's right there. And very instrumental in getting him here today. Sergeant Smith, thank you, sir. A longtime friend who has been with us since day one, and instrumental probably in all of us being here for our 4th year, Commander Don Langing, Executive Director, USO Northwest. Very honored to let you know of 2 very special people. Flew all the way here from West Virginia, where both my parents were born and raised. I'd like to introduce you to Rich and Vanessa Adelson, proud mother and father of Specialist Stephen Mace, Gold Star mom, and an angel to those troops returning home. Please join me in welcoming them. Thank you so much. And finally, and take note of this, especially if you're in uniform today, how many people in this community across this nation respect and honor so much what you all have done, and people you'll probably never meet or even know. And I want to introduce a young man in the audience by the name of Aiden Clubb. Aiden is a junior at Bellarmine Prep in Tacoma, and as a sophomore, he started Operation SOS. At the time, 15 or 16 years old, it occurred to him that he could start his own club, Operation SOS, Serve Our Soldiers. He has 30 members in that club as of yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, Aiden Clubb. Thank you, sir. Thank you to all of you, and just briefly, if I could, please, and I would ask everyone to stand and recognize all of those that are serving in our military today and those have served in the past. Please stand and be recognized. Thank you so much. So as we say in Texas, this is just a blessing, pure and simple. To be able to bring our military personnel and their families together as one community, just as it should be this morning, it is. And I want to thank you again for all being here. We're together to honor the life, service, and memory of Private First Class Kyle Farr, the late son of Leslie Main and Larry Farr. Our mission is to honor Kyle by helping our troops and their families that are struggling with the very real, painful struggles of post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury. We're together this morning as this prayer breakfast is dedicated in memory of Kyle Farr, Specialist Stephen Mace, and every soldier who has proudly fought and died for our country. We are together to pray that the men and women who have served in Iraq and Afghanistan find the courage and the love within their communities to rebuild their lives and focus on their own well-being as they shed their warrior clothing. We are together as a country and a nation and as a community because the fact is this country and this community needs these young men and women. This is a young generation who has lived in a life of commitment, honor, courage, and duty. A generation who has given more to their country than anyone or any of us could have ever expected or could have ever asked. A generation who embraces sacrifice and service, and a generation of leaders and heroes, but they come here without their own personal struggles. It's this very group of men and women that we need today in our schools as teachers and administrators, in our accounting, in our law offices, in our police and fire departments, in our hospitals, in our communities as leaders, and certainly in our government. They need our support, make no mistake about it, but we need them. Today we celebrate their bravery and their commitment both on the battlefield and as they share their stories. And today, as a community, we continue as individuals to take care of our troops as best we can as they come home. And that home has to be a capital H, coming home. Today, we are together as a community because of them and for them. God bless each and every one of you for being here. Thank you so much for being here. It's going to be an amazing morning. Before I introduce Brigadier General Paul Groover, I want to give you an idea of what's in store following his opening prayer. Today we're going to acknowledge and we're going to discuss post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury, the invisible wounds, what some men and women have faced. We could never imagine what they've seen, not easily forgotten, but with God's grace and your help, there is healing, and that is definitely part of today's story as well. We'll start with Josh's story. Josh Brandon. Josh is the founder of the Veterans Expedition Program, and you're going to see a video called Full Ruck. And I'm proud to let you know that this group of people is one of the groups that we support as the Permission to Start Dreaming Foundation. Following Josh's story, we're going to hear Mike's story. Mike Mitchell, a Vietnam veteran, M60 machine gunner, and he's going to be interviewed by Kenny Mayne of ESPN, and Kenny is also a board member of the foundation as well. Brigadier General Groover has been a member of Harbor Christian Center for just over 10 years and lives with his wife Karen here in the harbor, where they've raised 2 great kids. A combat veteran F-16 pilot with the Air Force, Paul now serves as a Brigadier General with the National Guard, directing our state's military response and recovery efforts for disasters such as the Oso mudslide and the wildfires in central and eastern Washington. Now, I grew up as a military brat, and I would imagine a Brigadier General and F-16 combat pilot says what he means and means what he says. So with that, his comments are his own and should not be construed of those of the National Guard. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Brigadier Paul Groover. Thank you for being here, sir.
If you would rise and bow your heads, please. Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you for our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and civilians who protect our great nation every day, at home and in harm's way. Thank you for their courage to rise and fire when they need to, the awareness to duck and roll when they have to, and the discipline to hold their fire when they must. Thank you for their strength to face the beast of combat and all of its fire and fury again and again for days, months, and years, even after the guns are long quiet. Thank you for the inspiration of our nation's greatest heroes of battles past and present, and the daily strength you give all of our heroes who face the roar of the guns and ultimately the forever changed sounds of home. Thank you for watching over them and the families and communities who love them. May we walk from this place today with a continued appreciation for the freedoms we enjoy as a nation, while at the same time with a renewed passion to serve the men and women who serve us so very well. In your name we pray, amen. Please be seated.
Everyday life was always kind of boring to me, and so there was always something cooler that I could go and be doing. Even at an early age, I was using the woods behind my house as a way to escape. I had a cat named Jedi that would follow me around in the woods, and it was definitely a Calvin and Hobbes thing. A young Josh Brandon on Webster Road outside of Cleveland, you know, would wake up early and fly out into the woods. And I mean, they're playing war or exploring a foreign jungle or, you know, Indiana Jonesing it. It's kind of funny to think back that I was actually out in my backyard playing war as a child. Something that would end up, you know, splitting my psyche in two later on. It's kind of strange to say, but I was excited about fighting. It was something I was pretty good at, which I don't know if it's something to be proud of or just, you know, a matter of fact, but, you know, I was really good at organizing people to kill other people. My second deployment was probably the worst one. That was a life changer. I was close to death a lot. I mean, the running joke was, you know, that I was kind of like a cat that had 9 lives. I had 2 pairs of pants shot out, You know, I've had RPGs blow up within a couple feet of me, skip between my legs. I don't know why I'm alive today. It doesn't seem right that you should become used to, you know, the kind of fighting or slaughter that was going on, but you really get desensitized to it. And it's almost a hindrance to have any kind of emotion towards it. It's like you have a little rucksack and you just keep stuffing every encounter, every close call, every death of a friend, everyone you kill, every death of a civilian. You know, you just kind of stuff that experience into a little rucksack, and you know, you put it on your back, and it just kind of burns you down more and more. But you know, at least you don't have to deal with it at the time. But in the end, you're carrying this giant rucksack full of some really bad stuff. The war doesn't define me, but it definitely changed me. I felt very washed up, and I think climbing and mountaineering, especially you know with other similar-minded people, it really allows me to keep proving to myself that I'm not washed up, that I'm still a warrior, that I can still achieve. When I was a company commander, I took my lieutenants up, and we taught ourselves how to climb. And then the more and more we got into the mountains, we found it was better than any kind of medication or any kind of therapy we were getting at the time. And I found that it really mimicked the best things about combat for us. Climbing, when it first started out for me, was an adrenaline rush. Now, eventually, that kind of faded, and it really started to touch the spiritual side for me. You know, you spend a lot of time out in the wilderness, and you know, you learn to love it, and then you want to protect it. I run the military program for Sierra Club Outdoors. The hardest thing is actually getting veterans out into the mountains to convince them that they want to do that, because it's while you're doing it, it's especially when you're on the approach or you're slogging up a glacier ice field, you're like, God, this is a dumb hobby. Like it's just work and it sucks. And they should do this. If they did this to prisoners, they'd get in trouble. But then you know you get to a good climb, or you get to the summit, and it's all worth it. Too many people pity vets or feel bad that they went through combat, and a lot of vets suck that right up. The pity on the vet that saw combat, you know, and bullshit. What made you great and what we're supposed to honor you about or with for what you've done should be the same attitude that you have back in the United States. So if you were a leader and a warrior in combat, you should be a leader and a warrior here. You don't need help from society. Society needs help from you.
All right, Dan, you are on belay.
The road, you know, is clear ahead. We get to determine our own future. You know, getting out and not going to combat anymore, it's kind of strange, because every aspect of my life was controlled around it. And now that I have control of my own life, and I'm free to do what I want, I have that blank canvas again. So I know I'll be in the mountains, and that's about the only thing I can guarantee at this point. For me, home will never be home again. You know, I think even if, as far as you can ever recover, I think home for me is halfway between combat and halfway between my old life. And I'll never be back in that old life, and I'll never be fully back in combat again. And I think I'm always kind of stuck in between. And the mountains, it's a place for me to go that it's almost like a new home where I can you know, you find peace.
Point of order. Are they allowed to eat at this point? We've had the prayer. Are they okay to eat? There's food in front of them. Somebody make a decision. Don, just, okay. As you were, eat if you like. Listen, this is Mike. I wanted to tell a real story that just happened before we start this, because this is Kevin, right? Served in Iraq. So I was checking him out before we're talking, and he seemed emotional. I was like, I'm gonna have to be there for this guy, you know, like feeling like I was gonna share if he needed some help. And then when Heather and Robbie's video Fix Me's playing, and they showed the first picture of Kyle, I don't think I've cried that hard in a good amount of time. and Kevin put his end on me instead. So thank you. When we first met, I asked, did you read the book Matterhorn? It's written by, if you haven't read it, it's a great book, written by a guy down, I think in Orting, and served in Vietnam. And I was telling the story to you about how they took a hill and they named it Matterhorn, and then the next day they gave up the hill, and then they moved on to another hill. And his answer was, my life sort of is the movie. My life is the book. So tell us about your experience in Vietnam.
Well, in 1968, I was sent to South Vietnam as an infantryman. When I got to my company, I was told that they needed either a radio man or an assistant machine gunner. So I thought, get behind the firepower. They introduced me to a young black man named Jake, who was nicknamed the Snake, and supposedly the best gunner in the whole company. There was about 120 of us at that time in the company. He said, I just want to tell you one thing. We have a code here. Probably heard it a million times in war movies. Kill or be killed. That's what we do. Kill or be killed. Forget all your training. And when we make contact with the enemy, throw everything you got at them, because they're going to be doing the same thing to you. We were in the 1st Air Cavalry. I think some of those photographs up there shows the helicopters. Those were actually pictures I took with a little Instamatic camera that I had on a hot air assault. Hot air assault meant that the enemy was there waiting for us, and the helicopters would hover over a bomb crater and make you jump out. So I jumped out, turned around, popped a couple pictures. Our job was to not fight the VC, but actually work the mountains and the jungles of South Vietnam, up in the northern area, and then down in the central area, searching for the NVA, which was the North Vietnamese Regular Army. They were just as well equipped as we were, except they didn't have any air support. So that is what we did I was doing the math the other day, I figured out I was probably in the jungle about 335 days out of 1 year. As you go out your door every morning to go to work, you get in your car, we would wake up in the morning, the choppers would bring us ammunition, water, food. We would get on those choppers and fly into an air assault area where they had just artilleried and jet striked to prep the area for us to make it safe. And that's what we did every single day. I've got 3 air assault medals. To get one, you have to do 100 combat air assaults. Now, to segue over into what this is all about, because I'm not into telling war stories at all, I've been living with PTSD for 46 years. When we would make contact with the enemy, it was horrific, horrifying. People were dying, being wounded, yelling, screaming, total chaos, completely out of control. Sometimes 5 minutes long, sometimes I think the longest was about an hour and 15 minutes, where we had to call the artillery and the jets in right on top of us in an area no bigger than where we're at right now. No one should ever experience anything like that in their lives. But what ate me personally alive every second of every minute of every hour of every day, when is it going to happen again? It has horrifically tattooed my soul. I deal with it. I went through therapy. After about 18 years, I found a place that would actually accept a veteran and help. Went through 7 months of therapy. Most of those ghosts in the closet that I was in fear of, the doors have opened and they've left. There's a couple still in there, but I can face them and deal with them.
Mike, when you first returned, what kind of help was there?
That's the easiest question to answer. Absolutely nothing. There was nothing for us veterans at that time.
So times have changed, clearly?
Hugely.
And you got into the music business and were able to tell us the story of how you're able to dedicate a show each year and do something good, and how it came to be that this was that thing this year.
Well, the music thing, just very quickly, the day I got drafted, the Beatles came out with Sgt. Pepper's album. I was like just amazed, and I'm going to miss this whole scene. Music's always been something. I was raised in a family with music. Returning home, there was a group called Blind Faith. Eric Clapton was in it, Ginger Baker and a few other people, Stevie Winwood, and they had a song called Can't Find My Way Home. Became my anthem, sorry. And music's just always given me peace. Mm-hmm. I've been doing music promotions for many years, but for the last 20 years, I have an organization called the Old Town Rhythm and Blues Festival that we do in Tacoma. It's our 23rd year, and up until this year, we had the Breast Cancer Resource Center to donate our money to. This year, they had to close their doors. I was approached by someone in this organization to help raise money and do a concert at the Tacoma Dome. I said, that's not the way to raise money, that's the way to lose money, so let's try and figure something else out. And within collaboration of Pat and Gail Ringrose, I don't know exactly where they're at in here this morning, we put the Blues Festival on this summer and gave all of our money.
Not a small amount of money.
$10,000.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for your service in Vietnam, and thanks for your service helping my sister and the foundation here. The next speaker, if you came last year, you met before David Heron, who served us in the Marines, and now he serves a lot of you in the local community because he's helping build some bodies and minds here with his CrossFit. He told part of his story last year, and this is kind of the next phase of it. So here's David for phase 2.
Well, good morning. How many of you can hear me all right? Good, all right. Wow, that was about 8 years ago, my last deployment to Iraq. You know, I'm here today not so much to talk about the man or the Marine that I was. And as you heard Kenny say, I served this nation. I volunteered to be an infantryman. I volunteered to be a Marine Corps reconnaissanceman. It was my calling, I felt, to hunt and kill, to shoot, move, and communicate on the best team with the best men. That was my goal, and that was my mission. The brotherhood that connected us as we developed in our training was powerful. And the man that stands before you now 8 years later, you know, shares something in common with that man. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about unit, mission, and code. You know, that man had a pretty clear mission. He had a strong unit, and he had a code and a culture that they cultivated through trust and shared hardship, suffering, and they felt invincible, like they could take on the world. And again, this is what they wanted, right? And so when I transitioned off of active duty, I'd seen some hard days. You know, I'd had the fortune to lead some very good men through some tough times. And we buried our own and patched up our wounds. And it was time for me to join a community, I decided. It was time for me to try to raise a family without one boot out the door and try to be a member, you know, an imperfect member at best of a stable place that wasn't a revolving door of deployments and the like. And I wasn't prepared at that point. You know, post-traumatic stress in 2006, or I got out in 2008, but post-traumatic stress was something we kind of looked at as weak. We kind of looked at it as something that, you know, that didn't apply to us. And for me, it wasn't so much the losing of friends and the burying of brothers as it was the aftermath that affected me. And so years later, you know, or not too much time later, about a year and a half later, I found myself in a job I hated, in a place I didn't like, totally alone and isolated, and angry, resentful. And the aftermath that I'm talking about widows, I'm talking about orphans, I'm talking about mothers, angry mothers, and families, the wreckage that goes on. You know, for those of us combatants, we raise our hands and we go in harm's way. But we take everybody else in our families with us. And when we don't come back, you know, there's a lifetime, several lifetimes in every family of adjustment that has to happen. And I guess for me, my heart couldn't take that. And I looked for answers that weren't positive. For me, my answer was the bottom of a bottle, where I tried to crawl inside. And I'll tell you, you know, there's not enough tequila to fix me. Not on this planet. I tried, believe me. But by the grace of God, you know, I was able to take a couple steps forward in the help of some good friends. And, you know, those steps weren't without setbacks. Sometimes you got to take a couple steps back before you can go forward. But as I relived the trauma in my head and then the ongoing trauma, the battles that I saw in the families and the guilt that I felt, I had my work cut out for me. So I guess my message isn't so much, you know, you see the man on the screen, you see the man before you, but it's really the man you don't see that I want to talk about. The man who's struggling. You know, the ghost I was, caught in limbo, caught in purgatory, trying to define myself without a unit, without a code, and no mission. I know that by name there are several of you out there, even in this audience and perhaps at home. I know a couple of you who are struggling today. And as the war on terror goes on, as you can read the news yourselves, today's enemies are tomorrow's allies, and today's allies are tomorrow's enemies. This war on terror continues. And patriots, young men like myself and like those you see in uniform in front of you, today will continue to go in harm's way to keep the wolf at bay. So they'll continue to come home too. And for those of you that are suffering out there, I guess I just want to share a couple tools that I've used to get to where I am. And again, today, it's a daily battle. It's a daily battle, but you know, I'm grateful and thankful to this race. This race, the mission is truly to find peace or to give peace to combat veterans, you know, and promote understanding, specifically combat veterans from the war on terror, which has its own peculiarities. So the tools that I've used, you know, to get me to this point, to recover from trauma, they're not much different than those of you would use if you suffered a death in your family, but perhaps maybe if you suffered a death in your family that you had a hand in. You know, because for us as soldiers and Marines, we always think we could have done just one more thing. Just one more thing, right? And so as we think about those things, the tools that I use to draw me out of that selfishness or that feeling of self-pity, you know, and that feeling that I can control the universe. You know, the first thing I recognize is that steel truly sharpens steel. I have to surround myself, like he did, with other men and women like myself. You know, I'm so grateful. I look out in this audience and I see so many familiar faces. I see the Storsets, I see the Ryans, Trevor, I see McIntyres, Lauren and Blake, you know, the Gartlands, I see Leslie Main and Kenny. I see people that I keep in my life that I'm not afraid to be honest with and say, I'm hurting today. I need your help. So that steel sharpening steel, that's what I need. I need that accountability or I'll disappear. I'll isolate and be gone. I've got to be reliable. I've got to do what I say what I do. I got to show up. I got to say yes. I got to say things like, count on me. Count on it. I'll be there. And the third thing I really got to do, man, and this is the toughest one, I tell you, and this is the one I realized just a few months ago, I got to do it all the time. You know, Gino's out there somewhere in the audience, and for those of you that go to church with us, you remember these cards. A couple months ago, I sat right there in the church, and Gino's sermon was on forgiveness. And this card, it's basically, you know, at the end of the sermon, it's an opportunity for those of you, you know, those of us in the congregation that were holding a grudge, to be able to write a name in a blank. So someone that you know, were angry at or held resentment for, or wanted vengeance with, right? Someone that really, really bothered you and got you upset on a deep emotional level. And you're supposed to write the name on the card and then put it in the waste can or in paper shredders that they had up here on the podium as a way to, you know, alleviate yourself from that debt, right? And to get better. And I sat there staring at that card for a couple minutes, you know, and I started to weep. And I'm talking big cry. I'm talking bawling my eyes out cry. And I'm looking at this card and I realize that the name that's supposed to go on this card, the name that best fits me, is my own. And so I'm crying over there and like, I mean, everybody's gone, right? Like, I'm still going and I'm crying over there and I've lost it, you know, a little. And Big Rick Enlow comes over and wraps me up in these ham hocks of his and holds me to his chest, and like a little boy, I wept into his shoulder and realized that forgiveness has to start in here. And that was the past, and if I don't forgive the past, my present isn't a factor, and I can forget about the future. So I guess I'm talking to that man out there, or that soldier, Marine, or sailor that's still struggling. And what I want you to know is that you're here for a reason. I believe in God. I consider myself a soldier for Christ. And I know that I have further battles to fight in my life. And whether that's a fight to protect my borders, or a fight, you know, or a fight to save my family, this nation and my community will depend on me to fight again. And I can't disappear. You know, I think Winston Churchill said it best. He said, to every man, there comes a moment, a defining moment where he is figuratively tapped on the shoulder and asked to do something specific and fitted to his talents. God forbid that moment should find the man unprepared to do that divine work. Trust others. Show up and forgive yourselves while I'm trying to do the same. Thanks for your time this morning. Semper Fidelis.
I saw what I saw and I can't forget it. I heard what I heard and I can't go back. know, and I can't deny it. Something on the road cut me to the soul. Your pain has changed me. Your dream inspires. Your face a memory. Your hope a fire. Your courage asks me what I'm afraid of and what I know of love. We've done what we've done and we can't erase it. We are what we are and it's more than enough. We have what we have, but it's no substitution. And something on the road cut me to the soul. Your pain has changed me. Your dream inspires. Your face a memory. Your hope a fire. Your courage asks me what I'm afraid of and what I know of love. I say what I say with no hesitation. I have what I have, but I'm giving it up. I do what I do with deep conviction. There's something on the road cut me to the soul. Your pain has changed me. Oh, your dream inspires. Oh, your face a memory. Oh, your hope a fire. Oh, your pain has changed me. Your dream inspires. Your face a memory. Your hope a fire. Your courage asks me what I'm afraid of. Your courage asks me what I am made of. Your courage asks me what I am afraid of and what I know of love and what I know of love and what I know of God.
Good morning. My name's Leslie Main. I'm so glad that you're all here. I've been thinking about what I would say in this next introduction as we set up for Sergeant Carter to speak. We're so honored to have you all here. Thank you so much, Sergeant Carter, for being here. But I'm thinking about how I describe this guest. What happens when two moms, Gold Star moms, sit in a Starbucks in Northern Virginia for about 4 hours back in March? We identify each other like this because we had not met before. My son Cody had encouraged me to reach out to this woman for some time because she was the mom of a very good friend of his in high school. He They played football together. They went to school together. They were rascals in her house. What happens when you sit in a Starbucks with Vanessa Adelson is you find out that as a mom, if you can't save your own son, you do what you can to save others. It is so my privilege and honor to invite Vanessa Adelson, who flew here from West Virginia with her husband, to be here on a very special morning. Please welcome Vanessa Adelson.
Thank you. 2 men, that is all I remember. 2 men knocked at my door early on Sunday, October 4th, 2009. I think one was a chaplain. I don't remember what they said. I remember hearing fragments. Your son, Specialist Stephen Lee Mace. I think I fell to the floor. Maybe I fell into my husband's arms. I don't know. I remember running out of the house to the porch and screaming. My 2 youngest sons were outside, leaning on a car. They knew what had happened. Nobody had to tell them. On that day, everything was taken from me, but I was still left with choices. I could immerse myself in my grief, or I could do what would make Stephen proud of me. And because he had sacrificed his life to save them, I knew that it was my duty to continue to care for them while they were still in Afghanistan, and once his brothers arrived back from deployment. It has been an experience that has opened my eyes to the challenges our military heroes make once they come back, that they're facing once they come back from war. While this 361 Cav was still in Afghanistan, I became a surrogate mom to several of Stephen's best friends. I talked to them almost every day on Facebook and sent them any items they needed. Many of you may not know about the Battle of COP Keating. On October 3rd, 2009, 400 plus Taliban attacked a small outpost of about 53 soldiers. 8 were killed, many were wounded. All came home with various degrees of PTS. Over the years, I've watched many seek treatment for their symptoms: anger, nightmares, flashbacks, insomnia, depression, a general distrust of people. And what I'm seeing, people, is not working. Most are being put on the same exact medications, no matter what their symptoms are. I like to call it the soup of the day. Whatever pharmaceutical company the government has a contract with are the medications they deem as working to help our soldiers get back to their normal lives. All of the soldiers that I've been helping me are telling me the same thing. The drugs just make them feel foggy and numb, and they are just masking the PTS. A lot of them have come and visited me. All carry amber vials, which they line up on a dresser as a reminder that they need to be taken. They take their prescription medication as they are told to do. Many drink too much alcohol. I guess it helps mask the pain. All of my boys have the same look on their face. The only way I can describe it is they look so sad and are carrying a secret around that can't be shared, but it is causing much pain. Watching them all struggle is so difficult and heartbreaking. Most people know me as a mother who lost her son, Stephen, to a war. What they don't know is that I really lost 2 sons in Afghanistan. 8 months after Stephen was killed, the Army deployed my 18-year-old son, Christopher. He is the youngest of my 4 sons, my baby. I think Chris went over there with great dreams of making his brother Stephen proud. He wanted to avenge his brother's death and do great things. A few months after his arrival in Afghanistan, Christopher contacted me. Proudly, he wanted me to know that the officers in his unit wanted him to apply for West Point. They were even going to fly Christopher to a base so he could take his SATs. We were all so proud. Good news had finally come to our family. Then in an instant, that flame had been blown out by terrible forces called PTS and grief. Within months, Christopher went from being a young man who wanted to take engineering at West Point to the young man who wanted nothing. I don't know what happened over there. I probably never will. Christopher has since been honorably discharged from the Army, and our family is trying to deal with the mess that is now my son. He too is on medications. Christopher has stopped going to the VA. Fortunately, the medications his private doctor prescribed are working a little bit better. But it is all our wishes, including Chris's, that someday he won't have to take them. Chris has told me that he trusts no one but his Army buddies, which is how most veterans feel. It makes seeking help even more challenging. He is currently going to school on the GI Bill. It's working, I guess. I do see times when the light shines in Chris's eyes. It is when he is hugging or playing with a dog, when he is golfing, cooking, or fishing. When Chris comes home after one of these types of activities, he is a whole different person. And that is why I know firsthand that these alternative therapies, which don't use medication, work. We have deployed our 1% time after time, and time after time, they are coming back with the emotional scars of war. Yes, it is a problem that needs to be solved now, but I don't think most of us understand the picture. See, these are the young men and women that should be leading our country. They know what it is to serve. They know what it is to sacrifice for others. Every ounce of our effort should be focused on taking care of our veterans so they can help lead this country into greatness again. So please, use all of your resources you have to help. These alternative therapies are working. It's helping our soldiers to trust themselves and know that enjoyment of life can be theirs again. So when you leave here today, start talking. Let your family, friends, and coworkers know that they too can help. Get involved, volunteer. Let us, the other 99%, start taking care of the greatest treasure this country has, our veterans. The young man I'm about to introduce and I don't see eye to eye about the events of October 3rd, 2009. Although painful, I think by talking about that day, it'll help most of you understand the complex nature of PTS and the challenge it is to treat. Stephen had just gotten off of duty when the battle had started. Instead of staying where it was a little safer, he ran back to the most vulnerable position to help his battle buddies shoot a .50 cal gun, which was attached to a Hummer used as a lookout point. Oh, how I wish he hadn't. They were the first line of defense, and the men were shooting so others could maneuver back into better positions. Eventually, 5 soldiers were trapped in the Hummer, and they knew that in order to have a chance at life, they needed to escape and fall back into the barracks to fight with the rest who were trapped at Keating. Stephen and 2 others were the first to flee. All were shot down immediately. Stephen was the only one alive. He was laying on the ground in the line of fire, gravely wounded and pleading for help. 2 soldiers were left in the Hummer. This could have been the end of the story. Stephen died while waiting for help, but he didn't. Once it was a bit safer, a soldier ran out to rescue Stephen. That was Ty Carter. He gave Stephen medical attention and pulled him back into the Hummer. Eventually, Ty and the other soldier were able to get Stephen back to the medics, where he was given blood transfusions. Although his wounds were many, Stephen was awake and talking all of the way up to the 14 hours later when he was medevaced out and taken to surgery, where he passed away. Ty came out of the battle feeling like he was a failure. His efforts didn't save Stephen. Everything Ty did for him, and still he didn't live. It is what gives him nightmares and causes Ty much pain. But for me, it is what gives me peace. And I don't know where I would be without this story. Stephen was brought back to his brothers. He was able to even laugh with them in his last hours. Laughing was his greatest joy. And when Stephen was getting ready to go into surgery, he was asking about the others at Keating and making plans to have a beer with his surgeon when they both got stateside. Stephen thought he was coming home to us. He was surrounded by love, and Stephen was in peace. It is the one and only thing that keeps me going each day. So please, everybody welcome this soldier and let him know he was not a failure that day, but a true hero who brought a mother peace. Ladies and gentlemen, Medal of Honor recipient, Staff Sergeant Ty Carter.
Thank you, Vanessa. Of course, every time that story comes up, I do get a little bit emotional because you see the picture of Stephen Mace up there, but unfortunately that's not how I remember him. The last time I remember him seeing it was not in that condition, and that's the face that it kind of sticks with me. But I'm going to try to lighten things up a little bit, and on the contrary to the rules that I'm supposed to follow, I'm going to talk about current events. So I was in the gym a couple weeks back, I don't even remember, and I saw a story on the news where some guy hopped the fence of the White House and then made it all the way to the front door before being captured. Now, that's mainstream media, and then I read some few things on social media. I'm not going to say who it was, but they brought up an interesting point, because if the White House was true to be in the White House, they would not have called him an illegal fence-jumping trespasser. He would have been labeled as an undocumented White House visitor. So, I can't take credit for that joke, but I thought that was very entertaining. But the thing that bugged me about mainstream media is that it's rumored that this individual was a veteran and he was suffering from a form of PTSD. That aggravated me. I don't get offended very much, so I'm just going to say aggravated. As of right now, most of the military and most of the American people still have no idea of what post-traumatic stress is. They call it post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, My job, Sergeant First Class Smith and myself, we've been traveling all over the U.S. the last year to try to educate not only the services but the American people about the facts. I believe, and several others believe, we should drop the D. It's just post-traumatic stress. Now, when I say that, please understand what it really is. It's an instinctive, reflexive response of your body and mind to recall a traumatic incident so you can avoid repeating it. Now, understand that. In there at all, does it say anything to do with combat? No. In there at all, or in that, it says trauma. The thing about trauma is that I cannot define a trauma that you've gone through. You cannot define a trauma that I've gone through. Every single person is different because their brain is wired different. My trauma is different than your trauma. The most common form of post-traumatic stress is actually a car accident. Whether you were in that car accident or not, doesn't matter. If you witnessed a car accident, and at night you remember it, and you have a dream, you're like, man, that would have been terrible if that was me. Or if you didn't even witness a car accident, if you had a family member that was in a car accident, it stresses you out, it bugs you. What people don't understand is that post-traumatic stress is how we learn and how we grow. We even use it when we discipline our kids. If they do something wrong, we're going to create a discomfort to where anytime they think of doing something wrong, they will remember that. It was like, oh, I don't want to do that, I'm going to get a spanking, or I'm going to get grounded. You kick up to the next level, of course, to the car accident, and then you start to understand. Then we're going to kick it up a few more levels. I rate these things together: sexual assault, rape, combat. In these incidences, you're placed in a situation where your perception of reality has changed. You're placed in a situation where your illusions of safety are removed. Now, when I say illusions of safety, I bet every single one of you in here, or I'm sorry, most of you in here, don't want to do 100%, believes you're safe right now. Every single combat veteran in here understands that's not true. Every single person in here who has had a family member or a coworker that they trusted assault them, they know that's not true. There's no way, with all these people in here, a tractor trailer can't drive through the wall and kill a few people. I'm pretty sure somebody's not going to take an AK-47, run through that door, and start mowing people down. I'm almost certain that there's nobody in here with a suicide vest. But is it possible? This is where it comes from. You know what's out there. You understand the dangers. Your illusions have been removed. You come back to the U.S., you still see those dangers. You still have the feeling that somebody's watching you. You still have the feeling that there might be crosshairs on you right now. This heightened sense of anxiety or awareness is completely natural. It's instinctive. For example, when I say instinctive, we're gonna jump off the human race, and let's go to Africa. You're a gazelle, chilling, eating some grass. Your buddy's eating some grass with you, and you're like, oh, I wonder how the grass tastes next to that shady tree. So your buddy hops on over. All of a sudden, lion eats him. For the rest of your life, are you ever going to go next to a shady tree to eat grass? No, because you've learned. And every time you see a shady tree, you're going to think of that lion. Anytime you think of grass now, you're going to think of possibly that lion. All these things are what make post-traumatic stress. The reason why I'm saying this is because part of my mission that Sergeant First Class Smith and I has chosen to do is that we want to educate people and help them understand. Every single one of you in here is going through a mild form of post-traumatic stress. However, some of you, a very select few, has experienced severe post-traumatic stress, and you're getting through it. But when you get through it, you will be stronger. You can't cure it. The only way to cure it is to erase your memory. You can learn from it, you can grow from it. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about what happened to me in my post-traumatic stress. Everybody thinks that it was the firefight that caused it. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of bad things that happened during that firefight. But at the end of the day, I was okay. I felt that I did what I needed to do. But that night, whispers happened. I felt confident in myself that I was able to take care of Mace. He was conscious. I kept on asking about him. He was working, and he's going to be okay. He's on the medevac. He's out of there. But that night, I heard from the first sergeant that Mace had passed on the operating table. Now, understand this. I did Boy Scouts, did lifeguard training, 4 years in the Marine Corps, several jobs, combat lifesaver, all that. 6 years in the Army. Well, at the time, it was about a year and a half in the Army. All my life, I trained, and I believed if I was strong enough, if I was fast enough, if I was technically and tactically proficient, if I did the right thing, if I was brave, I would be able to save a life in combat. When I heard that Mace had died, it crushed me. Everything that I believed in no longer existed. I believed that I was so much of a failure that I didn't think anybody wanted to talk to me. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to be around anybody because I was ashamed to even exist, to be sucking the same air that you're doing right now. When I got back from the deployment, things got worse. I was one of the first people back. So we lost everything in the firefight. The entire compound burnt down. I lost a laptop that had a journal of 8 years. I had pictures of my first baby being born. I didn't have any personal items. Everything that I had with me was donated or purchased afterwards. My entire connection to the United States while deployed was gone. So when I came back to Fort Carson, and there I was in my room, staring up at the ceiling. I have a severe ringing in my left ear because of a rocket-propelled grenade took out most of my hearing. So there I am laying in my bed. Don't get me wrong, they notified me about the nomination, but I didn't really care. The ringing started kicking up. Then the images that'll never go away. And in a way, I don't want them to. Images of Vanessa's son actually begging me for help and me having to tell him no. The images of certain Gallegos being taken out right in front of me with a machine gun. The images of Martin crawling on all fours with blood trickling down his neck after a barrage of RPGs landed within several feet of us, or a few feet of us. The sounds of a young man trying to yell but can't for help, and I have to look at him and tell him no. Those aren't good images to deal with, because then you hit into the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Should have done this. I could have done this. If I would have disobeyed orders right then and gone and get him, he might be alive today. But I didn't. I obeyed those orders. The words were, "You're no good to him, dead." So I waited, and we continued the firefight. All these things going through my head. Can't deal with this. So the one thing that I had back in the States that I didn't have in Afghanistan was the ability to go to the bars. Now, at first, I went to the bars because I wanted to hear the happy noise. Drown out the ring while people laughing, having a good time. I would sit there and I'd drink my soda and I would stare at a TV. I wasn't watching the TV, I was just staring at it, kind of like the way you stare into a fire. People would ask me, "Oh, what's the score of the game?" I was like, "I don't know who's playing." That noise kind of settled me. Because, I was looking at the TV. You can't look in the mirror because people think you're weird. You can't stare out the window because then they think you're a window licker. And you can't stare at other people because they want to cause a fight or something. So yes, I stared at the TV. But after a while, that didn't help. So then I started to drink. Helped a little bit. But whatever mood I was in, it intensified that mood. So if I was in a bad mood or a sad mood, alcohol would make it worse. If I was in a happy mood, then it kind of helped a little bit. So then I started to develop a habit at night. So first it was on the weekends. I'd watch a Disney movie, pregame, get a cab, and then go to the bar. This lasted for about a year and a half. I'd spend over $500 in a weekend on cabs and alcohol, all top shelf because I didn't want the hangover. Well, it started to get to the point when the rest of my unit returned. Everybody returned about 2 months later after getting back, and I was showing up to formation, smiling, just relaxed. I don't really smile that much. And I was pulled aside. Apparently, I smelled like alcohol all the time. He said, "I know you've been through," my section leader. He says, "I know you've been through a lot. If you don't go to counseling, if you don't take care of this, I'm going to put paperwork on you, take your rank." And I was like, "Well, man, you can't take my rank because then I won't have as much money to buy alcohol. You're also going to take my freedom. Shoot, I can't go to the bar." So I was like, all right, fine. I'm going to go see the same counselor that I saw in Afghanistan. And I went. Spoke to the counselor. I thought counselors were full of crap. Didn't like them, didn't trust them. But luckily, this is the same person I spoke to in Afghanistan. And plus, being deployed, she's a very voluptuous redhead, so of course I want to go talk to her again. But the thing that actually truly helped, the thing that assisted in my healing was actually the words that Vanessa spoke to me on the memorial when we returned. She said that I may not have saved his life, but I saved his death. Now understand that. It's almost taken me 2.5 years to get to where I am today. Those words echoed in my head. I started going to counseling once a month, went to twice a month. Twice a month, went to once a week. 1-hour sessions turned into 2 or 3 hour sessions. And I learned something very interesting. Counselors are not the same as doctors in a way. Doctors, they bring you in, they give you meds, they cut you open, they fix whatever's wrong, they sew you up. That's not what a counselor does. A counselor gives you a direction. See, you're all unique. If you're honest with your counselor, their job is to match your symptoms to a treatment, but they don't do the treatment. You do the treatment yourself. So I started learning the only person that's going to fix me or make me better is myself. The words that Vanessa gave me helped me reevaluate my situation. They helped me learn how to not be cured by post-traumatic stress, but to accept it in my life and move on. I started to believe in myself. I started going back to the gym again. I started to work out. I started to eat. I started to train. Because I may not be able to save somebody's life, but I can save somebody's death. If I work out, if I'm strong enough, if I'm fast enough, if I'm smart enough, if I understand the radio operations, I might not be able to save your life, but I might be able to save your leg or your eyesight. I don't control who lives or dies, but maybe I can control your life when you come home or control a better life or do something like that. So I hit the gym, reduce my alcohol intake. I do enjoy beer, by the way. And yes, I did drink O'Doul's my second deployment. That's that non-alcoholic beer. So people were like, there's no alcohol in there. I was like, who wants the alcohol? I just like the beer. And so I would do that my second deployment. But post-traumatic stress, because it causes you to focus on the 10% of society that has malice in their mind, you don't see the 90% who are just trying to live their lives. You're so worried about that 10% that the post-traumatic stress aggravates disorders, depression, anxiety, that heightened sense of awareness, because you know what's out there. Through counseling, through understanding of what's going on, I am learning to not focus on that 10%. When I'm with my daughter at the park, I'm with my daughter. Occasionally I check the tree line for anybody suspicious, maybe a rifle, but it's not going to change things. I have found a way to increase my quality of life by not focusing on the negative. I understand that I am now anxious. I understand that I have issues with depression, but I can acknowledge that because of the instruction. I also have an entire network of people, my family web, family and friends. I can call on any one of them if I have an issue. They will always be there. In fact, they're actually better counselors than my counselor. My father, I call him a lot, especially if I'm going through a divorce. My friends, I talk to them a lot. I'm getting out of the military very soon, and the transition is going to be difficult. But that only works if you choose to help yourself. You have to make the initial step. When the media says, this person's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, it's like they're removing the responsibility from the person and they're putting it on disorder. And that creates an illusion or stigma for the entire United States saying that, guess what? If you're a service member, if you have post-traumatic stress disorder, you are going to go crazy because you can't control yourself and you cannot take responsibility for your actions, which is a total load of crap. Forgive my language. I am responsible for me. I am responsible for fixing myself. Those of you who are suffering from mild to severe forms of post-traumatic stress, some of you are telling yourself, I don't want to tell anybody what's going on because I don't want my loved ones, I don't want my family to feel the pain or understand the pain I'm going through. They refuse to tell you because they want to hold it in themselves. They want to deny you the pain they're suffering. What most of you who are doing this don't realize is that your family and loved ones, they see you suffering. In their eyes, you're bleeding out, you're falling, and they want to help you. But you won't let them. You're telling them no. You're telling them they are not allowed to help you. Kind of like how Sergeant Larson told me I wasn't allowed to help Mace. I had to sit there and watch him. That's what you're doing to your family. That's what you're doing to your loved ones and friends when you don't talk about it, when you don't seek help. You're bleeding out, and you're tying their hands. When I say drop the D, I'm actually giving you guys this mission as well. Once I've explained it, you kind of understand what's going on. Please assist myself and Sergeant First Class Smith in pushing this message out. Veterans who've gone through post-traumatic stress and have recovered will be an asset to any company because they've already gone through a struggle and they've come out ahead. They can be mentors to individuals. And not just combat veterans, for post-traumatic stress, for combat, these individuals can help everybody else. Loss of a child, loss of a brother, seen a car accident, saw, a bad movie or something that they had nightmares from. These individuals who've gone through severe post-traumatic stress can mentor, can teach you. But in the end, it's our responsibility. We are here because we believe in this organization. We don't get paid for this. We believe in this. We believe in what you're doing. We are very honored to be here around individuals like yourselves. Because remember, most of the population doesn't care, doesn't want to care. The fact that you're here right now proves that you don't have to be a service member to serve. You can volunteer, you can give finances, you can give directions, open your home, help others. I'm thanking you for your service. Even though it's not military service, you're still serving those who are in the military. Spread this message. If we succeed at this, if we continue to push, we can all give ourselves permission to start dreaming. So once again, thank you. I'm very proud to be here, and thank you for listening. Thank you.
Oh, now you do. Thank you. Oh, my baby, when you're older, maybe then you'll understand. You have angels dancing round your shoulders, 'cause at times in life you'll need a helping hand. Oh, my baby, when you're praying, leave your burden by my door. He had Jesus standing by your bedside to keep you calm, to keep you safe away from harm. come with a light to set you free. Come to Jesus and he'll hold you in his arms.
Get through the maze here. Wow. It's been an incredible morning. That was anointed. You guys, thank you. That was amazing. I want to thank everybody for coming this morning. Kenny, thank you. Mike Mitchell, Don Gartland, Brigadier General Paul Gruber, who I had the privilege of going to the Holy Land with a couple of months ago. I asked him right back there a couple of months if he would be here, and he said yes. Vanessa, thank you so much. Sergeant Carter, you're a good speaker. The day job's going to work for you. I recently had the privilege of attending the Global Leadership Summit in Tacoma. Pastor Gino invited me to come. The founder, Bill Hybel, said something that it really struck me to the core that day. And it was really simply this: if ever there was a time in human history that was crying out for courageous leadership, that time is now. Folks, I believe that we're a better country than the example that we've shown up until now, how we treat and honor our veterans and our courageous soldiers. We're better than that. 5 years ago, as a mom, I tried to move heaven and earth, along with the rest of my family, to help my son Kyle figure out his life out of the VA hospital. He had served honorably in Iraq. We wanted to help him reclaim his life, but I admit that I had no idea how to help him. I didn't know where to get help, and I didn't know who to ask for help. There didn't seem to be any help. I wish I could have said to Kyle, meet my friend Josh. He's going to take you up a mountain. He's going to start some healing. Or I'd like to say to him, meet my friend David. He's going to walk you out of that wilderness and teach you how to heal yourself. Sadly, there's too many moms and dads that are living with this circumstance 5 years later. The last time I checked the news, I don't think that statistic is going to change. There's some terrific programs out there, folks. Veterans are starting them because they're the ones that understand the best. They know how to help each other rebuild, but they need the funding. If there's anything in this program this morning that has reached you, has resonated with you, would you help me? Will you help the Permission to Start Dreaming Foundation help those programs that are truly helping soldiers? I would just humbly ask that you consider, there's envelopes on the table. Take them home, take them outside, pray about it, think about it. If you can't give anything this morning, that's fine. There'll be a time. Look at those programs around you. Let us know about them, because we want to write checks. We want to write big checks for programs that aren't being funded now. We want to be a compassionate ally for our soldiers who need that extra embrace. I'm going to ask my new friend, Staff Sergeant Latanya Harris, to honor us and lead us in the closing prayer. It's been a real privilege to be here and sit with all of you this morning. I believe you are that compassionate ally that can help us. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you.
Can we all stand? Let us pray. Heavenly Father, your word declares, for great love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for our friends. This morning we thank you for brave men and women who proudly lay down their lives every day to protect our nation. Many have made the ultimate sacrifice. We, the soldiers, thank you today. These soldiers are the true warriors and members of our great team. Lord, grant their families the strength to get through this difficult time. It is in the moments that they desperately need you the most. We are grateful for all of those who have worked so diligently to make the Race for a Soldier program and this prayer breakfast a success. May something that was said or sung this morning minister to our hearts in such a way that it inspires us to get involved. But most of all, we pray that the Race for a Soldier has given all of our soldiers permission to start dreaming again. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Have your way in all of our lives today. Amen. Thank you. On your way out, they have these Bibles in the foyer for the military and for spouses. Whoever would like to get it, they're in the foyer on your way out. Please grab one. They were donated to the foundation. Thank you.
Blessed be your name. you.